in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast number 177. This edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Dawsontire and Wheel, your premier ag tire and wheel provider in North America, helping people grow. It's also brought to you by TractorZoom, delivering insights, and the official work boot of Moving Iron Podcast is Dryshod boots. So this week I've got a couple guests on. Don't normally have two guests on at the same time, so I'm going to have my ADD is going to come out for sure now. But I got Zach Johnson, the Minnesota Millennial Farmer on Twitter, and also got Mitch Hora of Continuum Ag on here as well. So guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us on, Casey.
Great. They also host a little thing called Field Work Podcast, so you might check that out too. So guys, this is our first time to actually meet each other, so it's an honor. Thanks for being on the show, and why don't you just give me a little background about yourselves, what you do, and talk about your podcast a little bit. Whoever wants to go first can.
So I'm a fifth-generation family farmer from West Central Minnesota. As you mentioned, I am on Twitter, but I've also got a YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on just about everything except Snapchat and TikTok. I don't want to try to keep up with those, but I basically highlight what I do on our family farm and try to involve the guys a little bit and just show what really goes on the farms. And through that, I got connected with Minnesota Public Radio and Mitchell, and we've been doing the Fieldwork Podcast now for 2 seasons. We're kind of in the middle of season 2 right now, so there's a bunch more episodes of those coming out that we have previously recorded, but I think it just keeps getting better and better, and I know, I'm up in the I'm not in the Red River Valley, but I'm pretty close to it. We've got some really heavy clay soils up here. We do a lot of tillage. We're growing pretty decent corn pretty far north in the Corn Belt, so that tillage really helps our soil to dry out and get things moving faster in the spring. So to use cover crops and no-till up here is really, really rare. There's just not a lot of guys doing it. So for me, I know I've learned a lot through the podcast just by being a part of it, and from knowing Mitchell and from taking all our guests in and talking to them about what they're doing. And that's really the focus of the Fieldwork Podcast, is to try to talk about what farmers are doing or can do, what have been the triumphs and the tribulations of trying to be more sustainable. And I'll let Mitchell talk a little bit more on that. He can let you guys know what he does and what his role is.
Right on.
Yeah, no, and I'm Mitchell Hora. I'm a similar situation to Zach. I'm 7th generation on our family farm down in southeast Iowa. Around Washington is where we're at. Diversifying our farm quite a bit here, actually. That this year we'll have corn, soybeans, cereal rye, barley, and mustard that we'll be harvesting on the farm this year, so that's kind of fun. A little different situation than Zach's operation, that based on our geography and based on the systems that we've adopted over really the last 40 years. We've been really focusing on building soil health and adopting the principles of soil health. And so we've been no-till since mid-'80s. Now this is our 5th year with cover crops and doing a lot of different experiments and trying to adopt more diverse cover cropping systems and diverse operations, just trying to figure out how do we continue to change our farming operation and utilize technology, utilize conservation, and tell that story. And we use a lot of data along with it too. So as you mentioned, I started a company about 5 years ago called Continuum Ag, and we do soil health data analytics. So I really like the message that we bring, to the podcast too, on the Fieldwork Podcast, that sustainability is different to every farm. It's different on Zach's farm versus mine, versus everybody else's farm, even people right across the fence line. It's all different. But to me, sustainability boils down to continuously moving in the right direction, continuously improving your environmental impact, continuously driving yield, of course, to feed more people, but focusing on profitability. That's what this all boils down to, that the farm cannot be sustainable if it's not economically sustainable. So that's really what this boils down to. And it's been fun to have those conversations and utilize some of our personal channels and stuff too, just to continue to drive conversation and try to have a little fun along the way too.
Yeah, no, that's always, podcasts are a good time. I use mine just to kind of spitball and talk about what's going on in the industry so I can keep up on different trends I see develop and stuff like that. So those podcasts are, I learned as much from my podcast as I hope other people learn from it too. So, but yeah, so
Zach has different types of fun on the 2 different podcasts that he's involved in.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we've got the Fieldwork podcast where we get down to business. We have fun there too, but we get down to business. And then we do the Off the Husk podcast, which we do right here in the basement. We did 2 last night. And so I'm a little bit slower today after that.
Yep. All right, so coronavirus things going on. We got all that craziness going on, but just like every other year, there's a crop to plant, and we're in that season. So how far are you guys away from getting planters rolling and finishing up your field work?
Well, actually, as it sits right now, today, as we're recording this is Saturday, what do we got here? The 18th.
18th.
So I'm hoping to do some tillage tomorrow, and then Monday morning we got a planter coming out that we're gonna hit it Monday, I hope, which is really, really early for us. I mean, if we get in the field by April 25th, for us that's early. We really hope to be in by May 1st. So the fact that we're going to be, planting corn hopefully on the 20th with a decent forecast, for us, we will go.
Yeah.
And it was still freezing last night, but our highs are above 50 now for the next week. And guys down in Mitchell's area probably think we're crazy if we're planting when there's still frost in the ground. I'm telling you, I get chewed out for doing it every year, and every year it's our best corn. We don't have to, I don't know. I don't know why. For some reason, it seems the cold shock deal just doesn't affect us that much right here.
Yeah.
But I'll plant. We will plant. We'll put corn in the ground on Monday, and hopefully it works out well. It has every other week.
Oh, snow.
Zach, I have snow, and I'm showing you on our video here, but there's snow on the ground outside of my window.
You had just as much snow as we did the other day.
I think we got 5 inches. Would have been yesterday. So 17th, we had about 5 inches of snow here at my house. Up at the farm, about a half hour north here, they only had maybe 3.5, 4 inches. But and it's pretty much all melted off. I mean, yesterday it was 45 degrees, so
yeah,
it's pretty well all gone.
Yeah, yeah. we had one of those days where the snow came through, and we're supposed to get, depending on where the line fell, 3 to 6 or 6 to 8, and we've got it was more slush falling from the sky than it was anything else. So we got a lot of good moisture that we needed pretty bad out here in the eastern Colorado and Nebraska Panhandle frame. So guys out here are starting to get warmed up too. What are you seeing down your way? You guys getting Mitchell? You getting ready? Getting field work done and stuff like that?
Yeah, we're going to be rocking and rolling too. This is definitely right around normal time for us. So April 15th is typically kind of go time. The plan for us, so April 18th today is Saturday. Tomorrow we're looking at spraying off some cover crop, and on Monday actually drilling in that mustard into the cover crop. Right. So we already planted some clover. About a month and a half ago, we planted some clover into our barley. So we frost seeded some clover. A month and a half ago, we planted some oats, just kind of as a cover crop in some wet holes. About a week and a half ago now, we planted some clover or some oats. And now we're going to start with the mustard on Monday, and we'll go straight into soybeans is what we're planning on doing first. And we'll drill soybeans directly into cereal rye cover crop and not terminate the cover crop. So we've got some moisture in the ground. We're definitely not wet. We're not dry. There's some rain in the forecast. Lows to be in the mid to low 40s for the next week. Highs mid 60s, upper 60s. That looks pretty good. But what we'll do is we'll keep the beans and the rye growing together and plant some of the beans here first, terminate the cover crop when things start to dry back out. And that cover crop's getting a little too aggressive, and we want to get that taken care of, and we'll use that to suppress weeds throughout the rest of the year. And then plant corn probably after this next wet spell that's supposed to be coming through here later in the week. So then we'll switch to corn, but yeah, kind of different. Typically we'd always planted corn first, but this year we'll be focused on soybeans first.
Right on. So planter technology has come a long ways in the last 5 years. in planting practices too have come a long way. It's just technology in general is really starting to kind of drive the equipment as much as the equipment is driving the technology. So, yes, did you guys take a look at what you're doing on your operations right now? How have your planting practices changed, and what on the technology on your planters themselves? How has that changed over the last couple of years?
On our farm, we've had the same planter since 2013, I believe. So I think this will be our 8th year on the same planter. We haven't changed a whole lot, but we do have. I'm fortunate enough. We've actually got a new John Deere planter coming out this afternoon that I'll be running a bunch this spring. It isn't a high-speed exact emerge. It is. So I'm excited to see how that runs. It's going to have the iGuide on the planter, everything RTK. So hopefully we can plant at 10 miles an hour. I'm a little worried about some of our buried Volkswagens we have, but we'll see. It's supposed to hold up, right? So we'll get a test on it, and it'll have the new 4600 monitor in it. And, I'm excited because that thing's going to have everything, best of the best technology. So we'll see how that does. Yeah,
that technology is something. Those things can plant. They can go out. They can get after it.
It's crazy, when I first heard about these 10-mile-an-hour planters, 5-6 years ago maybe, when they started coming out, and I thought, well, how is that going to work? How can that be accurate, But then when you look at it, it's such a simple design. I mean, you wonder, why didn't that come out before? I mean, you can see why it'd be so accurate, the way it works with the brushes in there and everything. It just, I'm excited to see how that thing runs, because I know the guys that have them really like them.
Yeah, they've come a long ways. The thing about those planters, it's not so much. That was the biggest selling thing when it came out in 15 was, you can go 8-10 miles an hour, and you're just gonna get done so much faster. And then I think now it's probably about the third or fourth thing that is the selling point of the. Now I guess it depends. If the year before was really super wet and you had certain windows to get in, that 10 mile an hour thing may have to help a selling tool. But if it's just a normal year, it's the emergence and singulation and those kind of things that all start to fall in line that really sell those planters. So it's an interesting tool. We've got a farmer we're going to work with up here that's got a circle he's going to let us plant next to in the middle of his field, in the middle of all the circles he's got, and we're going to be able to do our little dog and pony show out there and show how that works. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out with the new technology that's out there. Mitchell, what do you got down your way, man?
Yeah, we're running all the bells and whistles on our planter too, but just not set up for all the high speed stuff. We run a 12-row case planter, and it's got all the precision planting bells and whistles on it with the Delta Force and the V-Drive V-Set. The thing we added to it, so we've had that planter now. I think this will be our third season, maybe fourth, but I'm pretty sure third season on that one. So pretty new. It works slick. We didn't mention before, we're significantly smaller operation than Zach's operation. We're farming about 800 acres. So we don't have quite as much to get through as Zach, so that the size and the scope of the planter that we got works pretty well for us. The thing we added last year was in-furrow starter fertilizer.
Yep.
We've been doing a lot of experiments with different biological additives and split applications of nutrients. So that was the new addition last year. The new addition this year is we actually just traded in our tractor. Just got that last weekend. So we actually went from a Case Magnum 290 to a Magnum 240. A little bit newer. It is used. It's got about 600 hours on it, but it's got the new transmission and everything, a little bit newer electronics, a little bit newer tech, newer year, less hours on it. But a little bit smaller tractor. We're finding we don't need that much horsepower, and we're interested in doing more inter-seeded cover crops and split applications of fertility in the season to be able to side dress nutrients and spread out those fertility applications. So downsized on the tractor, which is kind of interesting. That not a lot of farms are necessarily downsizing on their tractors. So that was cool for us to do that and now have a new toy to play with and hope everything goes right. Dad said I've got to redo the fertility, or I've got to redo all of our seeding recommendations. He said that he couldn't figure out where they were at on the thumb drive. He said he had 3 of them. I'm like, I think you're just missing the 4th thumb drive. You're not looking at the right one, because those recs were there somewhere. But so I got to get that fixed here before we get everything going with corn.
So Mitchell, you had a red tractor, and you chose to get another one?
Yeah, a little babier one.
It's
pretty slick. Oh no, Zach and I have a good time going back and forth on the red versus green tractors.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be pretty slick. I'm excited.
Yeah. That's one thing about the whole virus deal. I was kind of worried about how sales were gonna shape up, and actually things have been. My joke I tell the office all the time is if I woke up from a coma today and didn't go to Walmart or something like that, I wouldn't realize there's anything going on. We've got plenty of people still coming in and getting parts and service, and guys are still looking at machines and those kind of things, and with all this stuff going on, kind of both of you, when you step back and kind of take a look at the plan you had to put in place before this coronavirus came around, I mean, how have your plans changed, or are they going to change? And if they are changing, I mean, is it a dramatic adjustment that you're going to make, or are you just kind of playing the wait and see game?
On our farm, I mean, like you said, if you woke up from a coma and didn't know any better, you wouldn't really know there's that much going on. I mean, when we need parts and we got to go to the dealer to grab something, we call ahead, they leave them outside. That's about the biggest change there is right now. I mean, we got to get ready. We got to plant the crop. Things have to go on. We try to stand 6-8 feet apart when we got guys in the yard dropping off seed, fertilizer, chemical, whatever it might be, or machinery or whatever. But otherwise, I mean, we're moving along things as normal. As far as changing anything on our operation right now, I think it's still early. We don't know where this is all going to go or what the effects ultimately are going to be. The packing plants shutting down on hogs is one big issue that I think could have some pretty long-term effects on the grain farmers, obviously on the livestock farmers too. But if we hurt our end users like livestock, the hog, dairy, and in the ethanol industry, I mean, we're killing those guys right now. We hurt our end users like that. That comes back on Mitchell and I, right? Because we got to get rid of the crop somewhere. So if you can't give it away, you can't give it away. So I think it's early right now. We're considering shuffling some acres. For the first time in 25 years or 30 years, we're looking at potentially growing some wheat instead of planting corn. Wheat. So wheat, like Mitchell's been doing. We're considering that, and it's so just shuffling some acres right now is kind of all we can do. We gotta farm the ground. We gotta do something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know, Mitchell. What are you seeing down there?
I'm looking at my recent text update on price of corn, and if you woke up from a coma and you saw corn is $3.22 like it is right now, you'd be like, what?
Yep.
But the only other thing that if you woke up from a coma here in Brighton is that you'd go into the local watering hole. Shout out to Commanders, and all the locals wouldn't be sitting in there. That's about the only thing that's really would throw you off. You'd know something was wrong then for sure.
Yeah.
What's your basis down there right now, Mitchell?
Oh gosh, no, our local prices and stuff are still okay. We did have one of the Tyson plants right down the road that most of the hogs go to that shut down. So I think things are kind of adjusting from that, but there's so many pigs in this area that our prices stay fairly consistent, so we haven't really been moving a whole lot right now. We moved some corn, it was a couple weeks ago, but we're just kind of sitting still right now. But that's the whole thing on our changing and doing this barley and mustard and rye and stuff. It's might as well do something different and try and see if we can find some prices and some more stability there. And now with those crops, in order to do it, we're getting contracts and some guarantees locked in ahead of time is how we're able to make that work.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got some price guarantees and stuff well ahead of time. But only thing for me that's changed, I think the pricing stuff, like the market, it's definitely going to be hurt. A lot of guys in this area are raising hogs. Local Tyson plant is shut down. Hopefully they can get going again. But those markets are definitely hurting. The only other thing that's really impacted my stuff is I do a lot of test plots and trials, and I've got some product coming out of India that is stuck in India right now. I've got some product that's supposed to be coming out of Puerto Rico, and their plant was shut down, so I'm hoping we can get that back up and going. And I had some stuff coming out of California that was shut down for a little bit, but they were able to get their their essential license or whatever. So they were able to keep up and going, and we got that product here when we needed it. But some of these imports and moving stuff around, it's definitely impacted.
Yeah, we haven't, knock on wood, we haven't had any real hiccups anywhere in our business. We haven't had a parts issue or anything like that where we can't get stuff. So, I mean, for the most part, it's just kind of business as usual, just the part like we're doing now. So we've kind of spread out our offices out a little bit, our sales guys, and basically just essential store people are in the store, and we've kind of spread everybody out a little bit to keep everybody in a little further away. We're utilizing Zoom and Teams and different stuff like that to talk with people. I think it was kind of fun at first. Now it's kind of getting old. So we're waiting for stuff to get back to normal.
I think it's going to be interesting as we climb out of this to see. I think some businesses are going to find some big time efficiencies in their business.
Absolutely.
And realize they could have been doing business differently. You don't need brick and mortar anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to walk into my dealership to get a part and end up standing there talking to somebody for a half an hour.
Yep.
You leave that outside for me, I can grab it and go on with business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't mind it a bit, man. I think there's a lot of efficiencies happening.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that's going to come from all of this, man. Is
Zach, that's just because you're so shy, you just don't want to talk to anybody.
That's the deal. Yep, I'm a hermit.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing about all this too is that there's just a national homeschooling program now. So we've got that's the other thing. My kids, I've got 3 kids. I got a middle school kid. He'll be 14 this summer. I got a 11-year-old daughter and a 8-year-old son, and they're trying to teach him Chinese, which I find to be ironic. They're trying to teach him Chinese on Zoom, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I can't help you with this. I don't.
No comprende.
No habla. So, I mean, next thing you know, he's trying to do this, and he's teaching the symbols. You know what the symbols mean. I'm like, here's what, say grandpa and grandma and everything else. And, you need to go over and write this in Chinese. And I'm like, dude, how don't you expect to teach someone that on Zoom? But I guess I got Rosetta Stone, so whatever. We'll figure it out. But it's those kind of things is I'll laugh at my wife. She's like, I would never homeschool our kids, and I poking fun at her the other day. I was like, oh, look at this. You're homeschooling the kids. So it's all kinds of stuff they're doing, man. It's just the hangouts and stuff that they have to do now with their friends and those kind of things. So I'm a lot like what you guys are saying. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out of this that's going to be totally different than what you had expected even a year ago. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yep.
All right. So farm data. When you guys are looking at that stuff, the information that you can gather from that, do you use Zach? Do you use on your Deere tractor? Do you use the JD linked information to really kind of step back and am I utilizing this tractor the way it should be, or am I, do I need it like Mitchell did, going down to a smaller size? Do you look at that kind of data and use that on your farm?
We use My John Deere to keep the planting and the harvest records. We also use FieldView.
Right.
And then we can use either one of those to transfer onto our FBN account. We use more data over there really than anywhere else. I like FieldView a lot because it's right there in the cab with you when you're running, as long as you got the Bluetooth puck, plugged into the CAN bus system. So it's right there with you. I like FieldView a lot when it works. I have had some issues with it, but ultimately I love having it. But as far as the JD link, we actually don't pay for that on our tractors. Now we've used it some with some of the demos that they've had out to us.
Yeah. But
on our tractors, we don't use that, I guess. But we also only have 3 main tractors, and we've only got 2 full-time guys, me and Dad. So,
right.
I always kind of wondered who's using JD Link to see where these tractors are. How do you not know where your tractor is, right? What's going on? Like, I know Dad is out digging a field somewhere. I know where my tractors are, but when I toured around this winter some and I went down to South Florida, there was a lettuce company there I was working with, and they've got about 200 tractors and 700 employees. Now, I was asking him about it. He said JD Link is an absolute lifesaver for them.
Right.
They've actually lost tractors. Like, they don't know where it went. Well, somebody quit on them and parked the tractor somewhere. They got to find that thing. So they can use JD Link to see where this thing is parked. Maybe it's been there for 2 weeks, and they didn't know where this dang thing was.
Yeah.
That's where it really makes sense.
Mm-hmm. what made you decide to get a smaller tractor from the higher horsepower one?
Basically, our tractor right now, all it does is we're planting in the spring. It's pulling a grain cart in the fall, and it's planting cover crop in the fall. That's it. Not a whole lot of horsepower needed. And the planter is 12 rows across. The drill is 20 foot across. Grain cart's not that overly big. Just don't really need it.
Don't need the
and, trade in. We don't need all the horsepower. We don't need to, to utilize the smaller tractor with better technology and some of the efficiencies in terms of fuel usage and such that can bring. Trade in the horsepower for better technology, and we just didn't need it. But also part of it giving us a little bit better options, like I said, to interseed and drive into standing corn. That's something we really haven't done. So looking at being able to do some of that, but it wasn't necessarily like an overall data decision, looking at like actual horsepower numbers and stuff, like you were getting out there with Zach. It was just evaluating overall, like, hey, we don't necessarily have to have this. We only have that one tractor on the farm besides the old 1980 5088 that's still laying around. That pretty much all that tractor does is plow snow and mow waterways and ditches. That's about all the old gal gets to do anymore. Sit there and collect rust. Other than that, but no, looking at, for the most part, data stuff we're looking at, we're bringing in data through Field View. Part of it's going through Field View, looking at some in-season imagery, collecting some of the data that way. But a lot of it then we're plugging into SMS and running evaluations on that. Been collecting yield data for a long time, so able to look at some of those trends. And we do a lot of trials, like I mentioned. And so evaluating return on investment, evaluating profitability per acre, yield being one of the drivers of that, but trying to evaluate, what are these differences that we're seeing, what's the data saying, and continue to drive adoption of some of these new products and new practices and stuff that we've been messing with. So doing a lot of the data that way. And then of course we do a lot of soil data, tissue data, imagery, but we built our own software to handle that data. So going things a little bit different route when it comes to some of those other agronomic insights.
Right on. So this is the question I like to ask guys when they're looking at their operation. So when you look at your trade cycle, is there a trigger in your trade cycle when you say, "Yep, okay, I'm doing this every so often," or get a certain number of hours, or what it is? What is it that when you were looking at what you have going on at the farm, when you decide to get that new planter, a new tractor, a new drill, or whatever it is?
We don't have that on our operation. I mean, we kind of go with we watch auctions a lot and try to see what's the deal out there right now, right? You can kind of tell what guys are buying and what they're not, and then we kind of cross that with what do we need to upgrade. And not that we have, our machinery line is good for the acres we run. We don't have much for weak points in our machinery, but we don't want to cannibalize our machinery. I mean, we want to maintain the integrity of the equipment line, right, and keep it moving forward as we go. So we just kind of follow that, and after 4, 5, 6 years of having a piece, we'll start considering, okay, it's time to upgrade, just so we maintain that integrity of the line, and then we watch the auction prices and try to figure out which piece we're going to do. I guess we really don't have a trigger like you say.
Yeah. Mitchell,
same type of deal for us. Yeah. I mean, I think for us, it's really, we're trading in stuff every couple of years, especially the planter, the tractor, and the combine have really been the thing, to trade. Some of the other pieces of equipment, they stay on the farm for a long time, trucks and stuff like that. But really, I think it's keeping a relationship with the dealer and keeping them in the loop. They understand the type of equipment that we run, the size of equipment that we run, and the type of data and stuff that we like to have in that, type of tech we want in that. So I think it's just keeping in touch with them, understanding when deals are going to be there to mostly trading stuff in. We do some different things at auctions, but a lot of it's just trading back and forth with the dealer and keeping in touch with them on what's the deal, making sure that we keep trade-in value high on the equipment that we do have, and just then do piece-by-piece upgrades from there like we did on the planter. So definitely not a great like set system to be able to do that. I'm more so looking at trying to figure out a set trade-in system for vehicles, personal and farm vehicles.
Yep.
I'm actually working on some of that with my financial advisor on what do I do there, because I'm driving like 70,000 miles a year between truck and bought a vehicle for my wife, and so it's like how do I work that trade-in system? That's one of the things that I am trying to get some real metrics and some numbers on, looking at tires, looking at oil changes, looking at the guarantee programs that these vehicle manufacturers have up front. Utilize that as much as we can, keep those trade-in values high, and just crank through vehicles more so that way.
Yeah. That's
trade-in value is a big one. Trying to, that has a big effect on what we choose to purchase or trade up for. Is what's it going to be worth when we're done with it?
Yep.
That's a big metric to watch.
Yep. Are you sitting when you guys have those conversations with your dealership? Are you? Because I like to do that with my guys, where you sit back and do like a 3-year projection or something like that. Obviously there's a million different things that can happen in 3 years, but given that rough idea of kind of, here's 2 or 3 different 3-year slots of what that looks like, and kind of what those machines did in those 3 different time frames, and what the year-over-year kind of depreciation. I use auction data like it's like crack cocaine, man. I can't get enough of it because there's so much stuff there that you can get always called the canary in the coal mine. It's whatever's happening in the marketplace, you're going to be able to see it in the auction market real fast. And you can you could ignore it as long as you want to, but sooner or later it's gonna fall over on you. But the auction data, to me, is the most important part of that. So, are your dealerships? Do you guys sit down and do that, or do you guys kind of take a look at your operations and say, in 3 years we think it should be this based on what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of what you're getting at there. That it's somewhat of a general idea, general projection. That like this tractor that we just got, the combine that we got a couple years ago. It's got 600-ish hours on it, and we're running it for a couple seasons, trading it back in. So it might have a season or 2 on it. We're going to run it for a couple seasons, trade it back in. So we got a pretty good idea of what that would look like, and able to get that penciled out. So I don't know. I think it's a mixture of that. Working just directly with the implement dealer too, and I think part of that is just by understanding who you're going to be working with and trading things in with, that they know that you're taking good care of the equipment too. They know that, now it's got 2,500 hours on it, but it's been taken really good care of as well.
Right.
So that also then kind of enhances that ability to negotiate, have those conversations, and get good trade-in value.
Yeah.
I think that makes a big difference. Yeah. If you take care of your equipment, it'll take better care of you. Right. And the people around, the neighbors, the dealer, whoever, they know. I mean, I know who takes care of their equipment and who doesn't around me. I know. What's that?
Well, I would say I'm thinking a piece on that too is like the relationship side of agriculture. I think with your implement dealer, that's probably one of the most important ones.
Yeah.
You got something with the fertilizer guy and the seed guy, and you have a couple people that you use there, but for your implement stuff, you're probably only really working with 1 or 2 people, and that's about it. Where seed or fertilizer, you might be working with a half a dozen different people on that.
Right.
And that's really just looking at pricing, where with implement, it's not only a pricing decision there.
Right. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, they have. That's why maximizing the tools that you guys are using on the farm from a dealership perspective is probably my most important thing that I'm trying to get across to folks. Is that like to ask you about that JD Link thing on purpose, but it was one of those things where knowing what your machine's doing and how much horsepower you're actually using, or another thing too, especially like with a sprayer is a great example of that. Idle time. We talk about depreciation. You talk about resale value and those kind of things. If you look at your tractors that you've got out there when you're using them and how much idle time you actually have, you probably want to puke a little bit after you realize how much money you just kind of let idle out in the field. No pun intended there, but it's one of those things where it's just it's absolutely one of the biggest things out there. I've seen sprayers that have 40% of the time they're actually working, and the other 60% of the time they're either getting roaded or they're idling. And So if you have 1,000 hours, you really used it 400 hours, but that meter says 600 or it says 1,000. So what's that do to trade value and stuff?
The one that gets me is when you look at the combine hours and you look at the engine hours versus a separator. Mm-hmm. That's the one that gets me like, oh man, the road time kills you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So
I hadn't even thought about the sprayer.
Yeah.
Like our sprayer is old. It's a 1990 Haggy, and that sucker, it's going to keep getting ran hard, put away wet for a long time, and just keep welding it back together. And she does great, does what we need, and goes over a lot of acres every year.
Yeah. And
that baby just keeps on chugging. Yep. So Dad loves the sprayer. He is not afraid to get that sprayer out, and he can cruise and get a bunch of stuff done and really feel like you're getting something accomplished in the day. But yeah, that sprayer hasn't. We haven't moved anything there for a while.
Yeah, sprayers are anymore. They're about as much technology on them as about anything else does. They're like a lunar rover almost when you start looking at the technology on that stuff. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Well, fellas, it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys being on the podcast. If Zach, if folks want to reach out to you and get your social media stuff or just reach out to you or whatever, what's the best way to do that?
YouTube is the first place you can go. You can find me there at Millennial Farmer. Millennial's tough to spell. There's 2 L's, 2 N's. You might have to Google it. If you Google Millennial Farmer, you'll figure out where to find me. But YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, in that order, are the best places to go.
Right on, man.
And on the Fieldwork podcast.
Absolutely. And then, Mitchell, where can people find you at?
Yeah, no, definitely encourage everyone to check out the Fieldwork podcast for more of me and Zach sitting around and dorking off and talking about farming. We don't typically get into this topic, though, so this was kind of fun to shift a little bit. We don't typically get into equipment that terrible much, so this has been fun. But all my stuff, kind of just going through rebranding right now. Actually, everything is at Continuum Ag or at Continuum_Ag now. So you can find us all over, except for on TikTok, because Zach won't let me get on TikTok yet. So.
Right on. And then Fieldworks on all the podcast channels, right? YouTube or
yep.
Apple and all that. Yeah, right on.
Yeah, at Fieldwork Talk on all that.
At Fieldwork Talk, right on, guys.
Yep.
Well, boy, it's been a lot of fun, man. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Casey.
Right on. So I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also check out movingironllc.com for all the latest blog posts and what have you that are coming out. I got one actually I'm going to put out today. So if you want to know what it means to have centralized evaluation process, by all means, read it because it's going to blow your mind. And then also check out Global Ag Network and all the great podcasters out there as well. So for Zach and Mitchell, I'm Casey Seymour. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard work.